What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to make an updated melee weapon comparison for Modern Warfare 2. Since I haven't done this in a while, I actually missed out on the pickaxe entirely, and now we have the dual commas in the game with Season 6, and I just wanted to see if these are any better than the previous melee weapons we had access to. Now I should also mention at the beginning here, one of the reasons I want to cover the pickaxe as well is later this season we're going to be getting a Doom bundle, which comes with the Doom chainsaw, and that is going to be a cosmetic skin for the pickaxe. So anything that applies to the pickaxe in this video will presumably be applying to the Doom chainsaw as well, at least based on how they worded the blog post. And let's dive right into the good stuff. Let's have a look at our melee ranges with these, as well as the radius at which you're able to get a hit, because some of them are more forgiving than others. Some you have to be looking more directly at the target, and others are quite forgiving. You can be aiming pretty far off target, and it will still sort of lock on and get you a hit. And starting it off by adding the pickaxe into the equation here, this one actually has the longest reach out of all of these melee weapons at 2.3 meters. However, you'll notice it's not nearly as forgiving. You have to be aiming a lot more directly at your target. You can't be aiming way off to the side or anything. You only get about 20 degrees of play on each side. As for the brand new dual commas, these ones have a worse range than the dual Kodachis and the Tonfa. However, they have a noticeably better range than the standard combat knife, and it's got the same hit detection radius at about 30 degrees to either side, so identical to both the combat knife as well as the Tonfa. So that covers the first part we wanted to look at when it comes to these melee weapons. However, our damage and our ability to swipe quickly with these are also very important stats. And when we add the pickaxe into the equation here, it actually deals the most damage out of any of these melee weapons at 150 per hit. So in regular core multiplayer, that's a guaranteed one-hit kill no matter what. And against armor, it's pretty solid as well, so probably a great option on the Warzone side of things. Then the amount of time it takes us for the first hit to register, there's a little bit of an animation when you first press the button to attack a player. In the case of the pickaxe, this is 330 milliseconds, which is a little bit faster than the combat knife, but slower than all of the other melee weapons we've seen so far. And then if you have to take multiple hits with the pickaxe, this is only going to apply to game modes with armor in it. It won't be applying to regular multiplayer. This is 670 milliseconds, which again is just a little bit faster than the combat knife, but slower than everything else. And then finally, let's add the dual commas to the equation here, and once again, we have a 135 base damage for the first hit, just like the combat knife and dual Kodachis, but there is a combo multiplier. If you immediately get a follow-up hit with the dual commas, you're dealing more than 165 damage for that second hit, so all it takes is 2 hits to take down 300 HP. Then when it comes to the amount of time it takes for that first swing to land, this is 300 milliseconds, which is a bit faster than the pickaxe and the combat knife, but slower than the dual Kodachis and Tonfa. And then the time between hits is pretty fast actually, at 585 milliseconds. That's the fastest out of any of these melee weapons that's capable of dealing more than 100 damage. So that's a pretty solid upside to the dual commas if you are fighting somebody that has armor equipped. But again, in regular multiplayer with 100 HP, you won't need multiple hits unless you have 2 enemies standing side by side. So at this point, if we're comparing the dual commas to the combat knife, we deal the same amount of damage, we've got a better one-hit kill range with an equal radius, our first hit is going to be landing faster, and our time between hits is also going to be faster, so it clearly seems to be a superior version of the combat knife. However, there's one last set of stats that are very important with melee weapons, and this is mobility. Mobility is especially important with melee weapons because you have to close that distance to get your kill. And let's once again have a look at the pickaxe first. And with this, our base movement speed is tied with the Tonfa for being the slowest in the melee category. Our sprint speed is also below average here, although it's a little bit faster than the dual Kodachis. And it's a similar story with our attack sprint speed. It's noticeably better than the dual Kodachis, but worse than everything else so far. Additionally, our attack sprint duration is 3.5 seconds with the pickaxe. As for the dual commas, our base movement speed is the slowest out of all of these melee weapons at 5.03 meters per second. Although it should be mentioned here, base movement speed isn't nearly as important as sprint speeds because you're rarely just walking around the map. Typically, you're going to be sprinting. And our sprint speed is very respectable here at 6.62 meters per second, which is just very slightly slower than the combat knife and better than everything else in the game. And our attack sprint speed is, again, very respectable, but it does fall a bit short of the combat knife as well as the Tonfa, and we get the same attack sprint duration as the combat knife at 3.5 seconds. So overall, like I said, damage-wise and range-wise, the dual commas are better than the combat knife. In saying that though, the combat knife still has a slight edge here when it comes to movement speed. So if you're wondering which of these is better when it comes to being a melee weapon, I would say it just depends on what you're looking for with your setup. Do you want to have a bit more mobility to close that gap so you can get within that shorter melee range? Or do you want that larger one-hit kill range, but you'll just get around the map slightly slower with those dual commas? At the end of the day, I think all of this is actually balanced quite well. Same thing with the pickaxe. I think they integrated this nicely. It offers something a bit different than the other melee weapons by having that noticeably longer lunge range, but they kept the upsides in check by making sure we don't have crazy fast mobility. And also, it's a lot less forgiving as far as being on target. You have to be much more on target with the pickaxe in order to lock onto the target and get that kill. And we see a similar story with these trade-offs with all of the melee weapons. At this stage, I actually think the melee weapon balance is quite good and also quite interesting. It offers you a lot of different options for whatever style of melee you want to go for. And I've got to say, I'm quite impressed with how they balanced melee weapons this time around. Now with that, I am curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. Out of all of the melee weapons we've got in the game, now that we have all the stats for them and you can see the comparison, what is your favorite melee weapon to use? Is it one of the new ones I covered today, the pickaxe or the dual commas? Or was it one of the previous ones? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.